reviews. My name is Chelsea Ciccone. I'm an editor at Booktrib, and today I'm really excited to be joined by Kitty O'Meara, who has been called the poet laureate of the pandemic. She wrote a prose poem earlier this March posted it to her Facebook page, and within a few days it had spread around the world, encouraging so many people in a very uncertain time and inspiring many to create art of their own. That book has now been beautifully illustrated and published as the children's book, And the People Stayed Home. Kitty, thank you so much for joining me. Welcome and happy Pub Day.
Thank you so much, Chelsea. It's great to be here.
All right, and so as we were talking earlier before our little technical mishap, I was saying that, usually we ask the authors about their pandemic experience, how things have changed for them now that they're having to connect with readers in a new way. But for you, what's really interesting is that because of the pandemic and this poem reaching so many people, you, in a time, as you said before we started, where people are disconnecting, you connected with so many people. As you're hiding from a virus, your poem goes viral. So tell us about writing the poem and posting it on Facebook and that whole experience.
All right. Okay. Let's see. It was Friday the 13th of March. And my husband and I had been in lockdown for probably about 2 weeks by then. I was worried about friends who are educators, as I was, and who are working at hospitals, as I was, in healthcare. I was just really concerned about them seeing what was happening on the East Coast and in Europe with both those professions. So I felt kind of frustrated because I am retired. I have autoimmune diseases that keep me at home in a time like this. I can't really risk going out and being of service the way I would like to. I do write. I've always written, and I had had a blog for many years that I had suspended for a few years to get some of my health issues under control again. And my husband and friends were saying, do the blog again, do the blog again. We like what you write and we like the photography. And so I thought, okay, well, whatever. I sat down that afternoon, it was lunchtime, and I just kind of tapped out what has become And the People Stayed Home. It was just kind of a bit of a children's story, a bit of a fable feel, or, a folk tale kind of, this is what happened. And I put a positive spin on it because that's who I am, and because I do think there's always a lot of positive things that can come out of challenging times. So, I didn't really think a lot about it. I posted it for my friends and closed the computer and went back to my day. And that night, a friend in Albuquerque said, I like this, can I share it? And I said, yeah, sure, whatever. Didn't think anything about it. And then a couple days later, my husband was scrolling through Facebook and saw that a former student of his, who I did not know, had posted it. And we couldn't quite figure out what had happened, but it really wasn't until I think the next morning when another friend alerted me that Deepak Chopra had just read the poem in a video that he posts daily or whenever. So that's when we began to understand what had happened, and then it kind of escalated with just, a crazy velocity after that.
I mean, it's all very exciting, and I can't even imagine finding out that Deepak Chopra had read my poem, let alone the response to your poem has been absolutely incredible. I mean, people all around the world have not only read the poem, loved the poem, but they have themselves taken to these creative outlets to show how inspired they have been by your words and to interpret your words in new ways. So can you talk a little bit about watching your work transform into so many other wonderful things?
Right. Yeah. So I have a background background in the arts and certainly grew up in a home full of the arts. And so to have artists tap into this and want to interpret it was probably one of the more joyful things in my life. This co-creation, people saying, you know, can I write a choral piece around this, which sort of, I have to say, I didn't even really consider this a poem. I've written poetry all my life. I didn't really consider this a poem, and setting it for singers to interpret kind of confused me. I just thought, wow, you know, I didn't intentionally write this with that in mind, so it lacked the rhythm and any kind of rhyme or anything that I would have thought a choral piece needed. But I'll tell you what, I've heard 4 or 5 now that are just breathtakingly beautiful. And then I was contacted by Renee Fleming and John Crigliano. He wanted to write an opera piece for Renee Fleming, who both of them in New York had a lot of friends in isolation and felt so concerned and really wanted to communicate and share something. And I guess, you know, my words kind of gave them that inspiration, and so they took it and created beautiful music together. And but you know, visual artists too, and a lot of film artists. And then also, I have to say, Chelsea, equally touching to me were people from all over the world who were in lockdown, even quarantine, and were touched by the words and felt comforted and inspired and shared little things with me, because I did start up my blog then and post it on there. And it was so much fun to see the way they were taking this and having fun, dancing to it, you know, drawing pictures, weaving. I don't know. It's just like any art form you can think of. It was really fun. It was touching.
Yes. You know, and it's so incredible because I think one of the things you've done for so many people, you know, this year has been, I mean, clearly unlike any other. And we've been, you know, separated from so many of our loved ones. And I think it's easy to fall into the trap of focusing on all of the loss, all of the grief that we've been faced with. And your work acknowledges this. You don't shy away from the fact that this does exist, but you've transformed that uncertainty and that negativity into what I would consider great possibility. You have flipped it and said, this is not just a time that, you know, comes with sadness and loss, but this is an opportunity for growth. It is an opportunity for healing. And I think especially the fact that this came so early on in all of our, you know, changeover into our very virtual world that we seem to exist in at the moment. You know, you talk about the new ways in which people can live, and that it doesn't have to be about taking things away, that this is an opportunity that we have given ourselves back some of the things that, you know, we've been too busy to do. So can you talk about writing that portion of your work and the different things you've imagined people to participate in this new world?
I think it's integral to who I am. It's kind of inherent hopefulness that I just always had. But I also think it comes from my years of teaching and working as a spiritual care provider, that a big part of healing that I think is sort of an ongoing invitation in our lives for all of us is to pull the camera back, so to speak, and look at a situation and the invitations that are in it for us to grow. And so, yeah, I saw this as a time to explore gifts that we all have. I'm kind of smiling because I remember when I was a teacher, you know, my middle school kids heard that so many times from me, was use your gifts, name your gifts, use your gifts. I don't think we all have just one. I think we have many, but I think we need to explore those and recognize them, be grateful for them, and then turn around and see how we can create with them ways to serve each other and the world. So I always think that this healing and creativity starts within, and then it needs to go out. And so there's a balance, and we have this maybe imbalance of home time and within time right now. But in a sense, again, if you pull the camera back, I think it balances the excessive outward reach of our energy that our culture kind of promotes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so
now,
speaking of,
yeah.
speaking of pulling back that camera, you know, the first part of your work focuses on that inward look and figuring out new ways to be. You talk about resting, being still, you know, participating in things that, you know, maybe we haven't had time for before. But after we get to that sort of change, you move out, and now we're focusing on the biggest outward pull of them all. We're looking at the planet. You talk about the environment and how this, now that we've healed ourselves, we're going to do better, and we're going to heal the planet. So can you talk about, you know, the significance of this for you, and what you're hoping to see and what you have already seen in terms of changes with the environment?
Well, you know, again, all of this is choice. A lot rides on our choices. It's not a magical thing, and it's not magical thinking, but it is true that for me that we have certainly the capacity to care better for ourselves and each other, which in turn would translate to then caring for the earth, or also caring for the earth. And we're behind the times on that. It's something I feel very strongly about, and tried to remain kind and invitational in the poem this time with my words, in terms of the possibilities we have to do that. We need to get going, and we, you know, again, we have the gift and we have the bodies, and what we need to do is set aside differences and join together and do it. It's time.
Yes, I mean, I completely agree, and I'm sure that is another reason that so many people really resonated with your poem, in addition to all of the creative things that we talked about before. One of my favorite line is, "And the people began to think differently." Because I think it focuses so much, like you said, that this is our choice, and we don't have a magic wand. We are the wand. We have to do the work. And I think the first step, you talk earlier in the work about the people began to listen, and we were thinking more deeply, and now we're seeing this shift and this change. And I honestly think that's the most powerful part, for me at least. And I think also it lends itself to pretty much everything. Our perspectives on so much have changed this year. And so moving forward, you know, it is my hope, as I'm sure it is your hope, that we take these changes seriously and think about the ways in which we can actually do better and continue to do better as we move forward. But can you tell us a little bit about the experience having the work published? Because as you said earlier, you know, you've always been a writer, so I'm sure you've written other things before, and now here you are published with this really beautiful work. So can you talk about translating that from a post and changing it into this book?
Yeah, I can tell you that, well, first of all, when I posted it on the blog, I was starting to get overwhelming response to it. And of course, I don't have people, I have myself. Very conscientious about trying to respond to everybody who had something to say. And eventually I came across a comment, I think it was on the blog, because people were, you know, finding every way they could to connect with me. But I think this was on the blog, and Andrea, the managing editor at Tra Publishing, asked, would I consider, you know, the creation of a children's book? And wait, I'm going to sneeze. I might anyway. Hang on, it could be. Anyway, I was all for it. I thought it would be a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful way to share this. So we had a Zoom meeting. Ilona Oppenheim is the publisher of Tra. She had read it to her children and they all liked it. And I think she was inspired and we took it from there. But I'll tell you, the art direction and the artists, the illustrators, just amazing, I think. And I do have a background in it. So, you know, it's not, I don't think without merit that I consider it so, but I cannot say enough about it. We had several meetings, all Zoom, you know, all virtual. And, you know, it was so much fun, Chelsea, too. It was such a gift and so humbling, as this whole thing has been, but it's also been very joyful and very engaging. And I feel a bit like, you know, I've kind of floated along through this time of lockdown in many ways with this blessing, because, you know, it was just bliss. It was just, we'd meet and ideas would be shared and we'd be very seriously, you know, looking at mock-ups and storyboards and saying, what about this? What about that? You know, and if I thought something could be a little different and I hesitated, Ilona was so gracious and grateful about saying, you know, what are you thinking? What are you feeling? We want to hear. I loved the whole experience. I loved it from start to finish. And then these amazing publicity people took over. You know, I just can't say enough about this entire team, the experience, and the book, the creation. It was so powerfully sort of a mimic of everything the poem discusses in terms of co-creation. And then we end up with this offering for the world that I think it's beautiful. I just love it.
I couldn't agree more. Those illustrations are so wonderful. They're so breathtaking. They fit your words so well. Yeah. It's such a cohesive project. I can really see that collaboration come together in the final product. Yeah. It's absolutely amazing.
It was wonderful. It was like the marriage of true minds, you know. There wasn't struggle or anything. It was beautiful. It was like they got inside my head and could see what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely gorgeous. So, you know, now that you've given the world this beautiful gift, what do you have any ideas of what you want to do now? Do you have, I mean, you're a writer, you're an artist, you have so much to give, I think. What would you like to do moving forward?
Well, I have continued with my blog and my poetry, and I, you know, kind of plod along with that. I have a lot to do right here at Full Moon, which is what we call our home, Full Moon Cottage. There's a lot always going on here. But yeah, I'm continuing to write. And I'll tell you, I was just talking with a friend about the appeal at this point in my life that picture books have. And it's for many reasons. But I like writing the poetry and seeing the images in my head. But I also like the brevity. It's like going from writing, you know, sonnets or verse that's lengthy to paring it down to a haiku. I like the essence of an idea and then translating it with the co-creation of artists, because I am not a visual artist. I like to design. I like to take pictures and play with them, but I don't draw and paint and interpret that way graphically. So it has to be a co-creation if anyone's interested in making a picture book of those that I'm writing. So I like that, and it's very attractive to me. And so I'm going to continue doing that.
And I think a lot of people are going to be really excited to hear you say that. And I have no doubt that there are artists that would be just honored to translate your work into a visual medium.
Well, you know, that's the other thing I'd say, Chelsea, is, you know, people are like, oh, she's an unknown artist. Well, no, I'm not unknown. I know all kinds of people, and they know me, and they knew what I could do. But there are many of us out here who are creating, and I hope that somehow we can open up forums and means of sharing this, not for commercial success, not for celebrity success, but because we need these gifts shared in the world. They enlarge us.
And you know, obviously you're very passionate about the creative process and about art itself. You've talked about, you know, people, you know, figuring out their gifts and using their gifts. So what would your advice be to, you know, people who are just discovering their gifts, or how best to use those gifts? What is your advice for them?
Yeah, well, so I think we owe to each other the verbal, communicated recognition of each other's gifts. And when I say gifts, I don't necessarily mean what we might confine into what's artistic either. I mean, there are people with the gift of compassion. There are people with the gift of listening. There are people with the gift of managing or directing or organizing. And all of these can be expressed, you know, artistically. To me, everything is an art. So I think the first thing we need to do is affirm each other's gifts, honestly. And because I think when we're good at something, we take it for granted, and we sometimes don't perceive that others do not have this and are attracted to it. And we also have a culture, and I think this is still unfortunately and especially true for women, where we're taught to go, oh yeah, thanks, no, it's nothing, yeah, no. And instead we should go, yes, thank you, I love that about myself, I am good at this and I want to share it, and if you can help me figure out other ways I can do that, it's welcome. And by the way, did you know that you have a flair for XYZ? You know, we just have to be kind and share and aware. I think that's the first thing for gifts. And then I think use them, share them in volunteer capacities, share them online. You know, we have this social media thing now where it's just crazy wild, but I wouldn't say have a goal of going viral, because that isn't a goal. That's a thing that happens rarely. But think about the ways you can serve the world, and I think everything else will fall into line for you.
That very well said. That was absolutely beautiful. No wonder we, you know, I'm so glad that we've been blessed with your words, both in and the people stay at home, and what you've and what you've just said. No, I absolutely agree. You're exactly right. And I think people should acknowledge what they offer the world, and should, you know, support other people in what they're there. I think you've really tapped into the fact that, you know, we all have separate gifts, but together, you know, we create this really beautiful community. So everything that you've said is absolutely lovely.
Thank you, Chelsea.
Thank you so much for saying all of that. This has been so much fun speaking with you. Thank you for taking the time to come and join me for this. I know that everyone that is commenting their big hugs for Kitty. Happy Pub Day. They're all so excited for you. Now remind everyone, what is your blog? Someone wants to know where they can get more of your writing.
Right. Yeah. It's The Daily Round.
The Daily Round.
And it's thedailyround.com. And if you put Kitty O'Meara and The Daily Round, you can probably find it on Google.
We'll link it in the comments below. And it'll also be linked in our on our website later. I'll make sure
Thank
people
you.
know how to get to you.
Yeah.
Well, Kitty, it has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It was nice to celebrate with you. I really appreciate it, Chelsea. Good luck with your own creating.
Thank you.